This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
And welcome to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you so much for listening. You can be a part of this fine production, 855-752-4842, 855-75 Civic. Early voting starts today, which means we are 2 weeks away. 14 days. I can't wait. So many people are so excited. We got some of the texters out there. Let's see. Derek from Wausau says, already voted at noon today. Kamala will win Wisconsin. Love it. Thank you, Derek. We played some sound from Madison. Troy from Mount Horeb said, Walls was great in Madison today. Keith Milton, looking forward to the ugly political commercials ending. Yeah, but you know, all the media, they're not going to be sad that can't cash those checks anymore. A lot of money being spent in this cycle. So we will eventually get past it all. We have an election between now and then some normalcy, question mark?
Question mark? I
mean, you know, it's like, oh, what happens then? You know, what happens then? I keep my fingers crossed. But some of the issues that are happening now as we get there, next couple of weeks, 14 days. Washington Post reporting U.S. officials say Russia smeared Tim Walz, might stoke post-vote violence. The intelligence officials see Moscow's hand in a fake video accusing the Democratic vice presidential candidate of abusing a student years ago. Saw this one come out yesterday, or at least some of the video, and then I'm glad we didn't jump on this, so we have a little breakdown here. And that the U.S. intelligence officials Tuesday said Russians are seeking to disrupt U.S. elections. They created a fake video and other material smearing Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz with abuse allegations and are considering fomenting violence during and after the vote. And I think a thing to remember about the philosophy of our adversaries in this regard, and generally, and I think we'll say it here, that they're generally supportive of Trump in this, but it's really about creating chaos and creating division. That's you know, that's where the payoff is for those that would stoke it. It's not about the actual violence itself. Sure, our adversaries love to see us in pain and beating the hell out of each other. Got that. But it is more about the chaos. It is more about us keeping our eye on each other and off the ball, as it were. The Washington Post continues that the fake content accused Walz of inappropriate interactions with students while a teacher and coach. The Post, and listen to this, drew millions of views on social media.
Yeah, of course it did.
Tarring the Minnesota governor ahead of November 5th. The officials said the Russian videos were part of the most active attempt by another country to tilt the 2024 election. They added that Russian government agencies and contractors, which generally seek to boost Republican former President Donald Trump's campaign, are considering trying to instigate physical violence in the fraught period after votes cast their ballots. Some of these influence efforts are aimed at inciting violence and calling into question the validity of democracy as a political system, regardless of who wins, a senior intelligence official told reporters in the latest of a series of background election threat briefings. Russia is, quote, potentially seeking to stoke threats towards poll workers, as well as amplifying protests and potentially encouraging protests to be violent. The Russian embassy and the Trump campaign did not immediately respond to emails seeking comment.
Shocking.
Is there a difference between the Russian embassy and the Trump campaign?
I mean, it's really just the location.
A different email address, but same IP address.
Right.
I jest, all you Russians out there.
Kind of.
Well, but, you know, Donald Trump, when he always talks, the fake Russia thing, of course, it wasn't a fake Russia thing. You can look at what we know publicly released from the Mueller report, let alone the redacted portions. And if you read into it, as Mueller said himself, if we could have charged him with a crime, we would have. But you can't, so we won't, because of that stupid Office of Legal Counsel rule saying you can't charge a sitting president. I think that is asinine, but I digress. The efforts by foreign adversaries to influence us, according to Donald Trump, was all fake then. But I wonder, is it real now? I mean, we if it goes against his political rival, is it terrible? Is it okay? I'd really like to know. Because remember, he said, hey, Russia, if you're listening, if you can find 30,000 of Hillary's emails, the press would reward you greatly for that. He's been doing this all along. So I'd really like to know what former President Donald Trump thinks about the Russian efforts to impact this election through this false, fraudulent Walz video. Now, in the effort aimed at Walz, one of the officials said, based on newly available intelligence, the intelligence community assesses that Russian influence actors created and amplified content alleging inappropriate activity committed by the Democratic vice presidential candidate earlier in his career. This officials spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive intelligence matters. The intelligence officials and analysts examined materials associated with the fake content about Walz over the weekend and concluded that the content was consistent with a pattern of Russian disinformation aimed at undermining the Democratic ticket. So if that's the case, and we believe the intelligence officials, and I don't know that Donald Trump does, because remember he said when he was in Helsinki next to Putin, he says, I don't know why he would, though. Or why he wouldn't. And whatever he said, he took it back the next day, but it was already, the embarrassment had already set in.
Well, not for him.
No, well, because
he's not capable of being embarrassed.
He has no shame, so you can't be embarrassed. It does not matter to him. But now, if this is the case, and the intelligence community assesses that this is what's going on, in this particular case, you have specific video against his political rival, will Donald Trump have the strength and the leadership to stand up and condemn these Russian interference influences? I mean, I think you should. If you're down for democracy,
of course he should.
If you're down for America, if you love this country, if you're a true patriot, you probably don't want foreign influencers trying to impact this election, even if it's for your benefit. Right, Trump? Because that's what they did before. Even though they couldn't necessarily, in the Mueller report and subsequent investigations, make the direct link and tie that Donald Trump was asking for and coordinating with the Russians for that effort. Certainly, they were the recipient of the benefit of that interference in the 2016 election cycle. So if Donald Trump has a problem with that, then perhaps he should articulate that publicly.
But
condemn the Russians for interfering in this election cycle.
But that's not going to happen, Dom.
Why not?
Because all that Trump is going to see is Walz accused of inappropriate exchanges with a student. And then he'll say, well, this is what was reported.
That's similar to what he did with they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets of the people that live there. And we'll go there. We'll go there in just a moment, because that's another great point. But there is this kind of effort, and certainly it's being done and perpetrated by the Russians. But there's people here too in this country that love to see the chaos. If you're the anarchist type and want to just see the whole thing blow up, well, what do you give a damn, right? Why? You don't believe in democracy anyway. Believe in the natural order of things. We'll just let it all happen. But there are consequences to this action, and this one just blew my mind when I saw this headline from NBC today. Bulletproof vests, snipers, drones. Election officials beef up security at the polls. They're hardening the polls. State and local election officials around the country are taking major steps to keep poll workers and voters safe amid a hostile political environment. What? Security measures, from beefing up law enforcement presence to donning bulletproof vests, from deploying drones for surveillance. Once routine business of running elections in America has now become much more fraught with risk in the wake of the 2020 campaign, with poll workers facing harassment, violent threats, and chaotic protests. It's a dynamic that has forced many election officials out of the industry, while those who remain have taken, in some cases, dramatic steps to protect poll workers and voters ahead of the election day. Some poll workers are also receiving pay bumps as incentives to stay on through the stressful voting period. So with the Russian effort to sow this kind of discord, this chaos, it's working. And we can't also forget that, of course, the Republicans in this case, because I don't know, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, 855-752-4842, that there's a lot of, progressive or Democrats out there that are engaged in this kind of behavior. I haven't seen that. Most of the folks that I know that were arrested on January 6th were hard righties. See what I'm saying? I mean, there seems to be only one side that is really, really, really digging in their heels. That's not like a statistic today. Some study that 1 in 5 Republican voters will think that if Donald Trump doesn't win, it's rigged. I mean,
That's too high of a statistic.
It's scary. It really is. And when you think about how elections are literally done, the actual process of it, and follow the ballot, and especially here in the state of Wisconsin, come on, you can't have over 1,800, conspirators to tilt, the top of the ticket or the bottom of the ticket. I mean, the arguments that are made doesn't make sense. When they came out of 2016 here in the state of Wisconsin, Scott Fitzgerald, who won for Congress, and Tom Tiffany also, they won. They won. Hey, we win. We're Congress. Look at us. Oh, wait, but there was fraud. Well, was it fraud for them? No, because they won. It was fraud for Trump on the same ticket, same ballot, same everything. It was only fraud on Trump's loss, not on their victory. So the arguments don't even hold up. And literally, Axios has an article today where Donald Trump yesterday admitted that there was no election fraud before he went out later in the day and talked about, we're going to stop the cheating.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I mean, no consistency whatsoever.
Well, there is some consistency.
The inconsistency that's it. Consistency.
Yep.
855-752-4842. Susan Susan, hold on. We will get to you. I promise. I want to make sure we give all of our audience members a appropriate amount of time to speak your thoughts. Once again, 855-752-4842. Drones, fencing, bulletproof vests to go vote. I mean, certainly we want to keep the citizens safe. Certainly the grandma volunteering down at the polling station shouldn't be harassed. But I also don't think grandma should be wearing a bulletproof vest. While I get it, that's a quick solution to a concern, I think there's deeper issues that we need to address. I'd like to know your thoughts, 855-752-4842.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. Talking about the hardening of our polling stations. Early voting starts today. I'm very curious to know if any of our listeners who have done their civic duty early and have gone out and early voted, what the situation was like. Were there lines? I did see some lines reported in downtown Milwaukee as one of the early polling sites. I also understand about 17 million early voters have cast their votes already.
Whoa.
Right. Now, some of the headlines have indicated or implied that a chunk of Republicans are now listening to their Orange Master and engaging and embracing early voting.
Okay.
But either way, 17 million already and counting. 855-752-4842. Don't think we need bulletproof vests, but apparently we do. Susan from McFarland, you are next. Welcome, Susan. What do you got for us?
Oh, hi. I just wanted to remind everyone that Alexei Navalny died in February of this year at a Russian concentration camp. His book comes out today. It's kind of serendipitous because this is the first day of voting. It's called Patriot. And he truly was a patriot. And we have it's so easy for us to vote. All you have to do is, make sure that you take the time. So anybody who's sitting this election out should be ashamed of themselves. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Susan. The old adage, people died for your right to vote. And it's something that we take for granted. I have for years. So I understand that. But it is something special. But as we just discussed, Susan, it's apparently getting harder. There's threats, there's chaos, there's drones, there's fencing, there's, bulletproof vests, there's snipers. This is now what our voting season is going, our voting election season is going to look like. This is the new normal. It's untenable. It is. It's just terrible. I mean, it's not acceptable.
No, and it's a reflection of just the greater society. I mean, you go to a school, you've got to go through metal detectors, you see armed guards, and it's, not the best. It is not the best. Some other news, I want to throw this one out there from the MSNBC. The Atlantic has a piece out right now. And John Kelly, if you remember him, Trump offered private praise for Hitler's generals. What? Steve Bannon reporting. Let me throw this one out there for your consideration. Heard this before, but I think this is the first time I've ever heard it confirmed. Per the MSNBC.com, in 2021, Donald Trump's spokesperson denied the former president had ever made positive comments about Adolf Hitler. More than 3 years later, those denials are increasingly difficult to believe. A new report from the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg included. Now, here's a quote from the Atlantic. Trump has frequently voiced his disdain for those who serve in the military and for their devotion to duty, honor, and sacrifice. Do you think he even knows what those things mean? I think he hears the word duty and he starts giggling.
And honor. He's like, is the honor? Is the offer? And sacrifice.
Oh.
And sacrifice. That's like what you do, to the people that used to work for you when you throw them under the bus and, relegate them to coffee boy status. Trump has frequently voiced his disdain for those who serve in the military and for their devotion to duty, honor, and sacrifice. Former generals who have worked for Trump say that the sole military virtue he prizes is obedience. Of course.
Well, duh.
Yeah. I mean, he loves it, man. Loyalty.
Well, as long as they're loyal to him.
Right. Obedience to duty, honor, and sacrifice?
No.
Not so much.
But
obedience
to
him, yeah. As his presidency drew to a close and in the years since, he has been more and more interested in the advantages of dictatorship and the absolute control over the military that he believes it would deliver. I need the kind of generals that Hitler had, Trump said in a private conversation in the White House, according to two people who heard him say this. Now, the MSNBC goes on to their article. As was the case 3 years ago, a Trump spokesperson told The Atlantic that the quote is absolutely false, adding that the president never said this. That said, retired General John Kelly, Trump's former Homeland Security Secretary and former White House Chief of Staff, went on the record with Goldberg from the report at The Atlantic. The former Homeland Security Secretary and former White House Chief of Staff, also known as the coffee boy.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what Kelly told The Atlantic, or Goldberg at The Atlantic. Kelly told me that when Trump raised the subject of German generals, Kelly responded by asking, do you mean Bismarck's generals? He went on, I knew he didn't know who Bismarck was or about the Franco-Prussian War. I said, do you mean the Kaiser's generals? Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals. And he said, yeah, Hitler's generals. Yeah. No, not Bismarck, not the Kaiser. Hitler's generals. Now, MSNBC reports Kelly went out to also tell Goldberg, again on the record, that the former president, quote, used the terms suckers and losers to describe soldiers who gave their lives in defense of our country. There are many, many people who have heard him say these things, quote unquote. If recent history is any guide, the GOP candidate will almost certainly lash out wildly at the man who served at his right hand for much of his presidency. He's already publicly referred to the retired general as dumb and a lowlife with a very small brain and a very big mouth, though Kelly has been eager to talk about this and related issues for a while. For his book, The Return of Great Powers, Kelly told reporter Jim Sciutto that Trump privately said that Hitler, quote, did some good things. For their book, The Divider, the retired general also told Peter Baker and Susan Glasser that he warned Kelly and his colleagues to be more like the German generals. When Kelly asked Trump for clarification, the then president reportedly replied by specifying the German generals in World War II.
Oh.
It now appears that the former White House chief of staff is adding even greater clarity to his experiences at Trump's side. This, of course, is the same Kelly who, after working closely with Trump, that the Republican is guilty of poisoning people's minds, having serious character issues, and not being a real man. Everybody this guy works with, at one point or another, rejects him. Isn't that a tell? 855-752-4842.
You're an organ donor, right? Well, here's a tragic fact. Approximately 20 people die each day waiting for precious donated organs. You could make a life-saving decision simply by getting that important dot on your driver's license. That little dot shows those who need to know that you've made a decision to donate organs at a critical time. Go to heroicdeed.com to learn more about the importance of organ donation and how you can make your wishes known. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. heroicdeed.com.
In a world of uncertainty, the night sky told us all to be patient. But when the ground started shaking, I wondered for how long.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. It's a phone line. It's a text line. And damn, Cam, I'm not going to read a War and Peace on the radio, but I appreciate your efforts. Talking about Donald Trump is being reported in the Atlantic, confirmed by John Kelly, Department of Homeland Security, and, coffee boy to Donald Trump, confirming Donald Trump wants his generals to be like Hitler's generals.
Well, Cam had another good comment in there that was short that
What? Okay,
the German generals lost.
Yeah. Oh yeah, minor detail there. I want my generals to lose. No, it's just terrible, and you hate when you go to the Hitler comparison, you lose, right? But damn, man, stop telling you want people to be like Hitler's generals, man. I mean, if Hitler was a POS, most terrible human being in the modern world, then why would you want anybody to be anything like any of the people around him? Oh, that's right, because you have dictator tendencies. I will be dictator for a day. And I have seen some folks opining that, it's deflection when you hear Donald Trump talk about Arnold Palmer's genitalia. Because when we talk about those kinds of things, we're not talking about his constant threats to use the National Guard or the military or the Department of Justice against his political adversaries. He will do this. He's already done it. We talked about Michael Cohen already. Michael Cohen went to jail, got sentenced to 3 years for his role in the Stormy Daniels hush money payoff case. Served a year, got out during COVID, wouldn't sign the NDA to not talk about Trump or not write his book, so they put his ass back in the slammer in solitary confinement for 16 days. They eventually let him out and said, that was wrong, shouldn't do that. And he now, because of the legal circumstances at the time and the laws as they are right now, Mr. Cohen has no further recourse. Too bad, sucker. Once again, Donald Trump got away with it. Losers and suckers. And if you're a guy like Michael Cohen, when you talk about the losers and the suckers and the way Donald Trump describes those who have died protecting and serving this country, the suckers and the losers are those that have engaged in Donald Trump and took the pay and worked with him and enabled him. Those are the suckers and losers. Who in Trump's orbit in the last, pick your time frame, has come out wildly successful, honest, straight up, awesome human being, not doing anything wrong? I'll wait for that. 855-752-4842. Love to hear that, because and granted, there's a little resin on the brain here these days, but my recollection is, no, not really. Not really. Anyone who's been with Donald Trump has either gone to jail. Look at the people that he convinced to come on January 6th that it will be wild. Mm-hmm. What did a lot of those folks say during their trial? Donald Trump asked me to do it. I believed what Donald Trump said. Mm-hmm. Who's the suckers and the losers? I mean, if you're going to listen, if you have a leader telling you to go out and break the law and you go do it and then you get in trouble for it, and you think, oh man, I really shouldn't have done that. Why'd you do it? Well, my leader told me to. You might want to look in the mirror. Might have some reflection and look at how you're living your life. Mm-hmm. And when you have me telling you that maybe you need to look at how you're living your life, you know what I'm saying? We've really fallen. 855-752-4842. Don from the MKE, you are up. Welcome, Don. What do you got for us?
Hi, Dominic. I was happened to read today's Journal Sentinel. It's on page 8. They got the House Task Force, big headline here, Trump shooting preventable. And then it goes on to say, describes how was shot in the ear at a rally in July 13th at Butler, Pennsylvania. And then I'm thinking, gee, that doesn't sound right. If he would have been shot in the ear, wouldn't he be dead?
Don, you got to be so technical about it. I mean, it nicked the ear. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways it could have been preventable. Like, I don't know, getting rid of the, weapons of war in the hands of civilians. That could be.
That could have done it.
I'm just suggesting, just throwing that one out there. And even when we talk about that, because it is terrible, man. You never want to see a political candidate or anyone getting shot at. No, this is not the Wild West. This is not some fiction. This is reality, and that is not acceptable in a civil society ever. I don't care who the candidate is. Period. Full stop. Not acceptable. That's why we engage in the political process, so we don't have to be out in the streets shooting each other like animals. See what I'm saying?
I mean, I'd like to see a raccoon with a gun. It was really cool in Guardians of the Galaxy, so I want to see it in real life.
855-752-4842. Wisconsin is very busy today. Governor Walz from Minnesota will be in Racine this afternoon. I believe he'll be speaking.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. At 6:45, my understanding, he will speak today. Did a rally earlier today. We played some of that sound. And one of the clips that we played, and just we don't have to play it again, but Walz talks about Donald Trump's own folks talking about how exhausted he is. And I when I heard that a couple of days ago, I was actually shocked. And here's why. Because Donald Trump is basically Superman to anyone around him. So my first reaction was, how bad does it have to be for them to admit that he's quote unquote exhausted?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
and to skip right past He's a little tired.
Right.
He's a little under the weather. To jump right to exhausted.
How bad does it really have to be for them to say something like that? I think it has to be pretty bad because Donald Trump.
We've been seeing how bad it is.
Well, we see it. I see it. You see it. I think a lot of folks see it. And if you don't, I'm wondering why not. It's certainly questionable the things that he says and the way he behaves. It's spiraling downward with 2 weeks to go. A couple of the lowlights, if we will. Just
absolutely, of course.
The Trump, we didn't get to these. I believe this was yesterday. So let's get to them today. Donald Trump, very concerned about the Department of Education. Apparently, they rent a lot of buildings in D.C. Maybe he's just mad he doesn't own the buildings, that he can't charge them 300% more rent because he's not the president, like he did with the Secret Service, which is just all of a sudden goes by the wayside. Like no one even talks about it. I mean, we heard some rumblings about it at the time, but to see a specific number, Donald Trump and his hotels were overcharging Secret Service by 300% for the hotel rooms.
Yeah.
To make more money off of we, the people. Everything about the guy is a grift. And how is that acceptable? People, come on. But anyway, very, very, very concerned about the Department of Education, and he has some ideas on it. Let's play.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's go.
Cut one, please.
What are we going to do to improve that in our school systems?
Well, we're moving them back from Washington, where you have people that don't care about New York, frankly. You know, in Washington, I don't know if you ever noticed this, you go Department of Education, Department of Education. You got half the buildings are Department of Education. I never saw. You don't need any of them. You know, I want one person,
none of them,
and a secretary to just make sure they're teaching
What's the secretary
English,
doing?
Okay?
Teach
Do
English.
a little English, okay?
English.
I'd say reading, writing, and arithmetic. No transgender, no operations. You know, they take your kid. There are some places.
Take him out of third period?
Your boy leaves the school, comes back, a girl. Okay?
It's
Without
true.
parental consent. What is that all about? That's like,
what is?
that's when they talk about a threat to democracy, they're a threat. Could you imagine without parental consent? At first, when I was told that was actually happening, I said, you know, it's an exaggeration. No, it happens. It happens. There are areas where it happens. We're not going to let it happen.
No, that does not happen. Literally does not happen. Now, I don't know how involved Donald Trump is or was with his children. Probably less than me.
Yeah.
And I seem to recall having a hell of a time getting my kid an aspirin.
Yeah.
At school. No, in my recollection, and we had a pretty good school district up at Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, but a lot of school districts struggling. Teachers going to pocket, man, to provide for their children. How is that? Don't even get me going on that. But it's not like there's tens of thousands of dollars just laying around and an operating room at the nurse's office. I mean, what in the literal hell are you talking about? And what kind of moron is interviewing this guy going, oh, yeah, that happens. No, it does not happen. They don't have the money. You can't get a freaking aspirin. And you're going to tell me that a boy goes to school, come back a girl? Come on, man. You got to be kidding me. But it gets better, you know.
Does it?
He goes on the friendly Foxy News.
Oh,
yeah.
We're not supposed to call it that.
The Foxy Not News.
There we go.
The Foxy sued for not being news. Let's talk about the geese.
The geese.
Because there was actually, I thought the Fox guy asked a fair question. Let's play it for the people.
Famous line about Springfield, Ohio, and I take your point. 15 to 20,000 legal Haitian immigrants settling in that area causes a lot of friction.
Legal.
But when you said, and you know it's gone viral there, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, you say you're just reporting what had been said. But why not say now, well, look, that turned out not to be true.
I don't know if it's not true. I don't know if it's true or not true. I read
eating
something.
The pets, you don't know if it's true or not true? It's been debunked by local officials.
What about the geese? What about the geese? What happened there? They were all missing.
They're all missing.
Listen, Howie,
two geese.
Howie, I have no idea. I said something.
The
big problem is that you can't put 30,000 people into a 50,000 person
they didn't.
town or city and expect this city to even survive or do well. What they've done to Springfield, Ohio is very, very unfair. And, I mean, there are a lot of stories. There are a lot of other stories that I've
Lots
heard
of
that
stories.
are horrible.
Lots of
I haven't
stories.
said it.
I read it.
Maybe
Saw it
I
on the
will,
internet.
Maybe I won't. But
The
that's
people
a
on
story
the internet,
that was
Dom.
reported, and I said that. Why don't you go after the newspaper that wrote it? Don't blame me.
Well, I think it's been debunked by local officials. but
I don't
you're-
think it's been
you're sticking
debunked
to
at
it.
all. I think nobody talks about it except you.
So with that kind of circular logic, no one talks about it, but you talk about it, and but this is how he does it, right? He when he's kind of caught, and he's caught here because he knows his bunk, and he can't of course admit that he was wrong. He can't of course ever go back and apologize
Never.
for being wrong. But I said something. I saw something and I said something. It's like the same thing he did when he talked about January 6th. I don't know. It was a day of love. They asked me to
I wasn't there.
They asked me to say a speech. So I came up there and did a speech. And I said patriotically and peacefully. I just did a speech. We didn't have any guns. I mean, the folks that came there. He can't help it. He wants to distance himself from the terrible statements and lies and rumors that he continues to spout. But he also doesn't want to distance himself from it because that would mean that he was somehow wrong or incorrect and misleading people. And if the geese are gone, man, I mean it's almost the end of October, man. They're going south, bro.
Stay south.
Go south. This is the Dom Salvia Show. We're not going south. We got one more segment we're going to play for you. 855-752-4842. Make sure you stick around at 6 o'clock. You got Maggie, Dawn, and Dan Schaefer. Civic Media's Voter Special, 6 to 7 p.m. today. The dudes from Busted Pencils, Dr. Tim, Dr. Johnny, also going to be involved. Keep your dial set. We got one more segment, and then Civic Media's Voter Special coming up at 6. 855-752-4842.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842, 855-75 Civic, our last segment of the day. So if you got something to say, hit us up on the phone line or the text line. Do it right now. Madison Plummer says, just early voted, all blue, get out and vote. Yes, sir. Plummer from Madison. Carrie from Tosa, if you can't see the con, you're the mark. Wake up, Trumpers. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Another one here, a sign in the traditional kind of blue and red with the stars and outline of the Trump campaign says, dictator or democracy, that's the choice. Yes, it is the choice. Let us end on something positive. We know Kamala Harris was in town yesterday. Charlie Sykes moderated the conversation between her and Liz Cheney. And apparently this went on a couple of different swing states yesterday, Michigan, I believe, and Pennsylvania as well. We're going to play a little bit of sound of Liz Cheney, but I want to throw this one out there. New York Times reporting, Bill Gates privately says he has backed Harris with a $50 million donation.
All right.
Gates said in a statement to the Times that, quote, this election is different, apparently reflecting a significant change in his political strategy. Bill Gates, 50 mil. What was the other day? Donald Trump has Elon Musk. I was going to say the Walls. Walls called Elon Musk a name today, and I really thought it was funny and appropriate, but I can't say it on the radio.
No, you can't.
Trump had Walls bounce around on stage, and Harris was traveling around with Mark Cuban. It's just like, hey, it's a bring your billionaire to work day. And while I certainly appreciate Mark Cuban supporting Harris and now apparently Bill Gates getting out there and throwing in $50 million.
That's a lot of moolah.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. See, I talk from the back of my throat. That means I'm about done with the show. It's a lot of money. I love the money. Oh. It's a lot of money. Different. Yes, this is a different election. I would absolutely concur with that. And folks, I think if you're on the fence out there, think about it. It is a different election. Hear what Donald Trump is talking about. Think what he's saying. Because whatever he will do to his political opponents, folks, he'll do it to you. Mm-hmm. Sooner or later, there's no one else left. It's just you. And if you think that you're going to get a pass because you helped Donald Trump with this or helped Donald Trump with that, just look at the carnage of coffee boys he's left in his wake.
Oof, yeah.
855-752-4842. Let's get to it. Some of the sound from Liz Cheney. I believe this was in Brookfield yesterday.
Yeah.
I saw the reporting that they may have mispronounced the name Brookfield, but, they're not local, Well, it's not like it's Waukesha, like a hard one.
Oconomowoc.
Wauwatosa. It's Brookfield. But we do have some of that sound. Let's hear what Liz Cheney had to say about listening to different opinions. I think this is, again, I don't want to say play sounds just to play the sound, but I think it's important for those that are on the fence, those that are traditionally conservative, that are concerned, that maybe don't like Trump. How can you? I get that. But he is the standard bearer for your party. Well, what used to be the Republican Party. Maybe if you just let that party die because it's now MAGA and, support someone like Cheney, it would be different. But here's what Cheney had to say, and this goes out to you, questioning Republicans and the independents. Cut number 1, please.
It is certainly the case that there are policies on which we disagree.
Sure.
But she is somebody who's devoted her life to public service. She is somebody who, even if you disagree with her, and maybe especially if you disagree with her, I can tell you she will listen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think I'm down with that. And it's, again, in contrast to what we know about Donald Trump, you've seen the videos of him sitting with his arms crossed, like he's got, I'm not listening to you now. No. A little more from Liz Cheney from the Brookfield. Cut number 2, please.
We're hiring somebody for the most important job really in the whole world. And I know that Vice President Harris is absolutely committed to governing in a way that reflects this coalition that has come together to support her.
And that coalition, I will remind you, involves Liz Cheney and Bernie Sanders. Cut number 3, Harris's economic vision.
If you look at the speech that she gave at the Democratic convention, it was far more Reagan-esque, far more moderate than the speech that Donald Trump gave. It's based upon being able to count on stability, being able to count on an investment climate that is undergirded by the rule of law. Donald Trump is at war with the rule of law.
And that is a great point. And again, I will reiterate, Donald Trump crapping the bed in that Bloomberg interview raises lots of concern for those that are looking for a stable economic climate. The man is chaos. Everything he brings about is chaos. And if you're looking for the tax cuts, yeah, you might get them, but you're also going to get everything else that comes along with it. Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show. I appreciate every one of you hanging out with me today. Tomorrow, Earl Ingram. We're going to get back together with Earl Ingram Jr. He will join me in studio on Wednesday. I want to thank Maggie Dawn for the overtime with Maggie Dawn. You catch her show Monday through Fridays on the Civic Media Network, 2 to 4 p.m. Also want to thank Luann Byrd, a Democrat running in Wisconsin's 61st Assembly District. I want to thank you, Jess, for everything you do and on all the folks here at Civic Media putting in the hard work, getting this place up and running. It is great. Folks, we are 2 weeks out. Go early vote if you want to. Certainly make sure you vote by 2 weeks from today. More work to do, folks. We'll be back tomorrow.
The national news cycle never stops. but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.